The 2020 NBA draft might go down as the most confusing and unpredictable classes in league history. Looking back at it, the pandemic played a big part, and the lack of consensus talent at the top. However, the weirdest thing that happened in this class was when the Bulls took Patrick Williams with the 4th overall pick. Why did this pick puzzle so many NBA fans? Well, months prior to the draft taking place, many mocks had him going in the late lottery, which even that surprised some people because he didn't even start a single game in college. So how did Williams' draft stock rise so much in such a short span? Well, because of one comparison many analysts were making. They were calling Williams the next Kawhi Leonard. When looking at each player in their final year in college, they did have a lot of similarities. Patrick Williams was a 6'8" forward with a 6'11" wingspan and weighed 225. He also had very large hands. Kawhi was a 6'7" forward with a 7'3" wingspan and weighed 227. He also had gigantic hands. Williams was also 2 years younger, which meant by NBA standards, he technically had more potential. This was just the tip of the iceberg of similarities between Kawhi and Williams. Both were very versatile defenders and showed a lot of potential to guard 1 through 5 at the next level. Williams showed flashes in college of having a promising mid-range jumper. They were both viewed as late bloomers, and they even acted the same. Both guys were known for being quiet, hardworking, humble, and highly coachable. The parallels between Kawhi and Williams were uncanny. But here's the thing everyone forgot about. Kawhi Leonard was never supposed to be this good. Nobody could have predicted that he would turn into a two-way monster who could someday carry a team to a championship. So now the real question is, why did Kawhi Leonard thrive and flourish while Patrick Williams ended up failing and becoming a bust? The answer is actually really simple. We just have to go back and look at each player's most important day of their career.
With the 15th pick in the 2011 NBA draft,
With the 4th pick in the 2020 NBA draft,
the Indiana Pacers select Kawhi Leonard.
the Chicago Bulls select Patrick Williams.
For every NBA player, hearing their name be called by the commissioner is the ultimate dream, but there's one thing they can't control: the team that calls their name. For Kawhi's circumstance, he was drafted by the Pacers and later that night was traded to the Spurs, an organization with a great culture and had many veterans on the team who knew what it took to win. As for Patrick Williams, he was drafted by one of the worst ran organizations, a team that hasn't accomplished anything since Michael Jordan left them in ruins. In their rookie year, they had very different roles. Patrick Williams had a lot more offensive responsibility. He also had a lot more freedom, which led to him developing some bad habits. He would often be too passive in games. On several occasions, he would play 30 minutes and take 3 or 5 shots total, going entire halves without shooting the ball. Instead of being held accountable for his mistakes, Billy Donovan, the Bulls head coach, just made excuses for him. We don't want to overload him. He's learning, he's got a lot on his plate, and the few times Billy Donovan did criticize him, it was super soft. We want him to be more aggressive, but we're not gonna force that on him. As for the Spurs' approach with Kawhi, it was the exact opposite. If Kawhi missed a rotation or didn't sprint back in transition, Pop would bench him immediately. Pop also wasn't afraid to call out Kawhi on his mistakes and would often confront him right in front of the veterans during film session, or even worse, would get in his face and yell at him in the middle of the game. In year 2 is when we start to see their paths head in different directions. Kawhi got a much bigger role. He was now a full-time starter and was being featured a lot more in the Spurs offense. Kawhi also went from a solid defender to a great defender. On the flip side of things, Patrick Williams' role decreased. The Bulls had a big offseason move and signed DeMar DeRozan. They quickly went from a lottery team to trying to be a first-round exit. This ended up pushing aside the development of Williams. He also got injured, which caused him to miss most of the year. He did make his return towards the end of the season, but now he was coming off the bench and his role was more unclear than ever. In year 3, the gap between Kawhi and Williams only got bigger. Williams was stuck playing behind DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine, and most of the time he just sat in the corner, rarely touching the ball unless he was wide open. Also, defensively Williams was solid, but very inconsistent. He still showed flashes of someday being able to develop into an elite defender, but due to the Bulls being a terrible defensive team, Williams hasn't been able to break some of those bad habits he developed early in his career, and it's been holding him back from ever reaching his full potential as a defender. Some of these bad habits are in games he often gets caught ball watching and loses track of his assignment. He often is late on rotation or has weak closeouts. His engagement on the defensive end can be very hit or miss. Now as for Kawhi, just look at LeBron's face when he checks into the game in the finals. He was a big problem in year 3. Next year, it was the same old story for Williams. And as for Kawhi, he just kept getting better and better. Coming into the season, this was Bulls fans' last hope for Williams. With DeRozan gone, maybe he could have a breakout year. Yeah, this was not a good year for Williams. He actually became known as the NBA player who can't make open dunks. He had career lows across the board. If you compared rookie Patrick Williams to his current form, you could make the case he was better in his rookie year. You can tell he's lost a ton of confidence. He's a worse ball handler and shooter. Even his defense doesn't look as good. This year also showed us that Williams lacks some self-accountability. There is no reason he should be this bad, and even if the Bulls pushed aside his development, he should have been in the gym every day trying to prove them wrong. At the end of the day, Williams should have never been compared to Kawhi, because Kawhi developing into a top 50 player of all time is a 1 in 1,000 scenario. The stars aligned perfectly for Kawhi to succeed in the NBA. And just because Kawhi and Williams were cut from the same cloth in college doesn't guarantee they'll develop into the same player. Most important thing that makes you who you are is the people that surround you and the choices you make. Speaking of guys cut from the same cloth, in high school Cam Reddish was compared to Paul George. If you want to hear his journey, click right here.